Hey, okay, so this is how I normally would color something like this. If I'm starting with an image where the product's already colored, normally, if I know I'm going to be using this for lots of different color combinations, and then I would make these all grayscale first. And normally, you can go here to grayscale, um, but sometimes you can see the values are different. So that causes issues in terms of like a consistent color, depending on what you're using through all the cups. So what I would normally do is go up to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. This is settings that you would see in Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom too, but I would go here to Color Mixer, and I basically go to Saturation and just take the saturation down on everything. And after I do that, then I would also go to Luminance, and I would like kind of match up the grayscale values so that everything is close, so that if I had all four the same color cups, they would all look like they're the same color cups. So I do that, and now at this point, once I have the grayscale, then I would go in and select each cup. Alright, so at this point, we're going to select out each individual component. So whether this is a stack of plates, stack of cups, I would just get a selection saved for each one of these. So one way, when it's like this, or if this was on a white background, one way I would do it is just hold down Command, and on this layer file over here, hold down Command, you can see this box appears, and then I would just click on the image, and it basically selects whatever the object is on the layer. If there was a white background here, you can go over to Properties here, Quick Actions, and then select Subject. And these days, Photoshop's pretty good about selecting just the object. You might have to go in and clean up some of the shadows. If it's getting shadows or some of the areas where it's really white, it might mess up there. But for this particular file, you can just hold down Command, click on this selects this. And so basically what I would do is I would come in and with the lasso tool, we'll come in and basically select out each part from the group. Oops. Each part from the group. And so once I have one object, one of them singled out, I come up to here at the top and select, and then save selection. And then I would basically name it. So this way I would name right cup. I went ahead and did them already, just so to speed things up. Doesn't take too long for you. But so I named it right cup and saved it. And then after that, you would go to the, getting to the next one. And another thing I would do is I would go up here to layer file, hold down Command again, click on the image, it selects the whole thing. And now to kind of speed up the process, I would go in and load selection, and I would load that right cup I just did, but this time I would select subtract from selection. So then it removes that cup, and then I just come in, and now I'll just select out a different cup and that. So the reason I work this way is so then I don't have any overlaps in my selections. Because if I did it freehand to get this center cup right here, if I did freehand to do it instead of using the previous selection I already made, there might be some overlap in color, and then that'll look a little weird when you're recoloring the photos. So this is just a technique I use to kind of get a clean line between each of these cups. Not that there's no like overlap of color or something funky. And so I'll basically use that process. Once I have a second item selected out and saved, then I would go in, reselect the whole thing again, then I would subtract. I would load selection and subtract each of those, whatever I need to subtract from the selection, and then until I have all the components saved. Then I will go in and load each selection. So right cup, I'm loading it, it's a new selection. So I have the right cup here, and here at the bottom of the layers, there are these options here, and I would do solid color. And if you happen to have the hex value of the color, you can go and enter it now. If you don't have it right now, you can still save it and come back in and edit it. So, if we wanted an aqua, we would have the hex value for the aqua, save it, and see if I ever need to edit it in the future, which you're already familiar with this. You just double click on that and then edit it. So, but then you would go in here to use these, and this is how I do it. There are some people who will just have the color and have it visible, like switch it to where you can see the product, and then they will come in later and then add these kind of adjustment files like hue and saturation and then come in and make adjustments, I just find it's faster going this way. So, I'll have a color, and then if I want it to be a little darker and a little richer, I'll duplicate it. And I duplicate it by taking the file and dragging it over this box with the plus, and it'll basically duplicate that layer. And then I'll take this layer and I'll change the setting, the layer setting. So, and I'll make I'll multiply one, and I'll kind of build it this way to get it close to the color I'm looking for. And this is one of the reasons why when I'm changing this to grayscale, I'm trying to make sure there's enough highlights on the cup, there's enough shadows in the cup, because you want it to still be visible once you start adding the color layers on top, because sometimes you'll add it and the product will just look flat. But if you have enough contrast here in the cup and the products, then it'll translate better once you start coloring it. And so, for example, so I did this, and let's say I stop here. You can leave it like that. Sometimes I make a new group from layers, and oops, it's appeared on a different screen. So then it asks you to name it, and I'll be like aqua. And then you have an aqua layer. And so that one would be done, and I'll come in here, load selection, and I'll do the left cup. Load selection, that's selected, come down to the bottom of this layer window, solid layer, and now I'll want like a yellow cup. So I made that color. I'm going to come up here. And usually with brighter colors like yellow, I'll do one layer that is on the color setting, and then I'll duplicate it. And then I'll do one or two soft light, and that usually gets me close. This is actually good with just one. So, that one's done, and, if you want to stay organized. And this window keeps popping up over here. And then do that. So now I've got this layer. I'm not using this. I'm going to delete that. I'll do another one here. Up, up. Same thing. Solid color. And if I had like the sky blue colorway, like that. And I would use the hex values if I was doing this, really doing this the right way. And then I might add, and another thing too, when you're doing these different layer settings, you can adjust how strong it is. Like this, I have multiply, and you can see that's really strong. But here, next to multiply, there's opacity. So if I want it to just be a little darker, you can come back in and just kind of control that. So if you're like, you want it just right, you go there. So this is at 46%, or it could be 45, and then make another group. Again, this window keeps popping up over here. So, might as well do the last one. Bottom stack. And solid color. I'll make this purple. It's more like there. And for some of these colors, sometimes you can just do one. This set of color is pretty good. I don't need to add anything else, any soft light or multiply or anything like that. And really, sometimes those are the main ones I use: color, soft light, or multiply. But I don't know, if you need to, or if it's not quite right, you need to play around, you can use any of these. And again, you can mess with the opacity if you don't want it to be as intense. But something like this, then you can come in if you need to. So if you want to change the color in this, like this time I need it to be pink. And then whatever color I use in one of the layers, I'll just, this hex value right here, I'll copy it and then just paste it here, and now I have the pink. Or if you want it to be the ice blue, I'll copy this hex value, which I might not need 2 layers of that. Yeah, and this I had as multiply, but since it's a lighter color, I'd use the soft light. It's more of an aqua, but and then I would come in, I just duplicated that again. I dragged this layer that had soft light, and I went down and duplicated it, and it came up with the second one at soft light. You can see every time I add a layer that has soft light, it brightens it up a little bit more. So if you want to go even more, it's another. So you can play around with this. You see that on some of the brighter colors, sometimes the product looks a little faded or a little flat. One thing that I'll do is like for example, this yellow. This is a left cup, so I'll go ahead up to select, load selection, and I'll select the left cup. And I'll go down to the actual image, the grayscale image, this image right here, whatever it's named, the one that actually has the product on it. I'll copy, so it's Command C, and then paste, Command V, and I'll move this above the layer. So now it's above the yellow, and then I'll do like a color burn. See how that pops it more? Now it looks more, has more contrast and definition. Looks like more. The cup doesn't look like flat like that. And again, I can do this. If it's too much, I can knock it down a bit to like 50%. You can see that really did help with the lighter yellow color. It doesn't look like a flat piece anymore. It has a little bit more depth. It looks a little bit more real. So that's just one of the things I'll do sometimes if I'm running into issues. The color is a little, making the product look a little flat. So far, the purple, that looks the most natural to me, and that was just, one layer. So it depends on what color you're working with.